First contact's price. The void between Jupiter and Mars erupted in a kaleidoscope of light as reality itself tore open. Dr. Sarah Chen dropped her coffee mug, watching through the observation deck of Research Station Hawking, as massive ships emerged from what could only be described as tears in spacetime. Her first thought wasn't of the aliens themselves, but of how badly the physics community had misunderstood quantum mechanics. Status report. Station Commander David Rodriguez's voice boomed through the intercoms. All departments, check in immediately. Sarah's fingers flew across her console, running diagnostics on the quantum sensors she'd been calibrating when the incident began. The readings were off the charts, suggesting energy outputs that made nuclear reactions look like chemical batteries. The alien vessels, sleek, organic shapes that seemed to flow rather than fly, were engaged in combat. The larger ships, gleaming with what appeared to be crystalline growths, fired streams of particles that bent space itself. Their opponents, darker vessels with pulsing violet energy lines, responded with weapons that seemed to temporarily nullify the laws of physics wherever they struck. "This is not how I expected first contact to go," Sarah muttered, recording everything her instruments could capture. 3 years into humanity's first deep space research station's operation, and they were getting a front-row seat to an alien war. Commander Rodriguez appeared on the deck, his usual composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Dr. Chen, please tell me you're getting all of this." "Every bit," she confirmed, not taking her eyes off the displays. "Sir, these energy readings, they're rewriting everything we thought we knew about physics. The way they're manipulating space-time." A blinding flash interrupted her analysis. One of the crystalline ships had exploded, the shockwave rippling through space in ways that defied conventional physics. The blast wave was heading straight for the station. "All hands, braced for impact," Rodriguez ordered, but Sarah was already moving. Her fingers danced across the console, activating the experimental gravitational dampeners she'd been developing. They weren't tested for anything like this, but it was better than nothing. The wave hit. Metal groaned. Alarm screamed. But the station held. "Status," Rodriguez demanded, picking himself up from where he'd been thrown. "Hull integrity at 82%, the engineering chief reported. Dr. Chen's dampeners absorbed most of it. "Sir, but we've got bigger problems. They've noticed us." Both alien fleets had paused their battle. Several smaller vessels were now approaching the station, their intentions unknown. "Open all frequencies," Rodriguez ordered. "This is Research Station Hawking of Earth. We are a peaceful scientific installation. We mean no harm." The response came not in words but in actions. A beam of pure darkness lanced out from one of the violet-lined ships, slicing through the station's outer ring. At the same time, one of the crystalline vessels moved to intercept, extending what appeared to be an energy shield around the station. "Evacuate the outer ring," Rodriguez commanded. "All personnel to emergency stations. Dr. Chen, keep recording everything. Humanity needs to know what we're dealing with." Sarah's hands were already moving, but her mind was racing ahead. The aliens weren't just advanced. They were wielding forces humanity had barely theorized about. Yet something about their combat felt inefficient, as if they were so advanced they'd forgotten the basics of physics they'd transcended. "Commander," she called out, "look at their weapon patterns. They're fighting like they've forgotten about conventional physics. All their weapons are based on exotic particle manipulation, but they're ignoring basic Newtonian mechanics." Rodriguez studied the battle through the reinforced windows. "Explain." "They could achieve the same results with far less energy using simple kinetic impacts. It's like they've evolved past the point of considering simple solutions." She paused, watching another exchange of impossible weapons. "If humanity's going to survive this, we might have an advantage they don't expect. Which is, we still remember how to fight dirty." The station shuddered again as another blast caught the edge of their crystalline protector shield. Through the chaos, Sarah could see more rifts opening in space, more ships arriving. Send everything we have to Earth, Rodriguez ordered. All the sensor data, all the visual recordings. Humanity needs to prepare. Sarah nodded, initiating the quantum entanglement communicator she'd been testing. It was experimental, but right now, that seemed fitting. Humanity's first contact with alien life was watching an impossible battle with impossible weapons. As she worked, Sarah couldn't help but smile grimly. The aliens might have mastered the manipulation of space-time, but humanity had mastered something else: the art of turning knowledge into survival. And right now, that might be the most valuable physics of all. The battle raged on, and Research Station Hawking found itself witnessing not just humanity's first contact, but potentially the opening moves of a war that would reshape the solar system. The question wasn't just whether humanity would survive, but how they would adapt to a universe that had suddenly become much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Sarah watched as another crystalline ship positioned itself between the station and their attackers. These aliens, at least, seemed interested in protecting them. But as she studied their tactics, she couldn't help but think that humanity's greatest asset might be its relative primitiveness. Sometimes, the simplest solution was the most elegant and the most unexpected. "Sir," she called to Rodriguez, "I think I know how we can help our apparent allies. Sometimes the best way forward is to go back to basics." Project Aurora. 6 months after the Hawking incident, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in a massive underground facility beneath the Atacama Desert, staring at humanity's response to the alien threat. The ship didn't look like the elegant vessels of either the Meridian Alliance or the Void Collective. Instead, it resembled something from humanity's naval history, if battleships had been designed to sail through space. "It's ugly," Admiral Helena Vasquez stated, coming to stand beside Sarah. "And that's exactly why it might work." The vessel, dubbed Aurora, represented everything humanity had learned since the battle at Research Station Hawking. While the Alliance and Collective relied on exotic physics and energy manipulation, Aurora was built on principles as old as Newton's laws, enhanced by selective adoption of alien technology. "The Alliance representatives still think we're making a mistake," Sarah said, reviewing the latest simulations on her tablet. "They say we're building an obsolete weapon." "The Alliance has forgotten what it means to fight with limited resources," Vasquez replied. "They've evolved past the point of remembering that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective." Sarah nodded, watching as engineering teams swarmed over Aurora's hull. The outer layer was composed of layered metamaterials, designed to absorb and disperse energy weapons. Beneath that lay meters of traditional armor, engineered to handle kinetic impacts. It was a hybrid approach that neither alien faction had considered, combining primitive durability with advanced technology. "How's the weapons integration coming along?" Vasquez asked. Sarah pulled up the relevant data. "The main gun is essentially a mass striker on steroids. We're using salvaged Alliance gravitational technology to accelerate conventional projectiles to relativistic speeds. No exotic particles, no space-time manipulation. Just good old-fashioned kinetic energy." "And the Collective's tech?" "Their void manipulation technology has been adapted for our point defense system. Instead of trying to create sophisticated energy shields, we're simply creating microsecond zones of null space that cause incoming fire to cease existing. It's crude by their standards, but it works." The facility's lights dimmed momentarily as Aurora's systems underwent another power cycling test. Unlike the alien vessels that drew energy directly from quantum fluctuations in spacetime, Aurora relied on massive fusion reactors. It was less elegant but far more reliable, and harder to disable. "What about the crew?" Sarah asked, watching as personnel moved through their training rotations. "Handpicked from every space-faring nation," Vasquez answered. "We're not just building a ship, we're building a statement. Humanity united, facing the stars together." The Aurora's bridge design reflected this philosophy. While alien vessels were controlled through direct neural interfaces, Aurora used hardened conventional systems backed by quantum computers. Every critical system had a manual backup. Where the Alliance relied on AI automation and the collective on collective consciousness, Aurora would be guided by human intuition and determination. The Alliance commander called our design philosophy charmingly primitive, Sarah recalled, allowing herself a small smile. He couldn't understand why we'd build manual controls when neural interfaces exist. He'll understand when an EMP takes out their neural networks and our crew is still fighting, Vasquez responded. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the most reliable. A klaxon sounded, signaling the start of another systems test. Sarah watched as Aurora's weapons arrays cycled through their activation sequences. Rail guns charged with salvaged Alliance power cells. Point defense systems created patches of absolute darkness using adapted collective technology. Electronic warfare suites, built from scratch using insights gained from studying both alien factions, came online. Time estimate until completion, Vasquez asked. Sarah consulted her data. 2 weeks for final integration testing. The real question is whether we'll have that long. The Alliance is losing ground against the collective, and Earth's location isn't a secret anymore. Then we better hope our hybrid of old and new technology works as designed, Vasquez said, her eyes fixed on the ship. Because right now, Aurora represents everything humanity has learned about warfare over centuries, enhanced by technology we barely understand. As if in response to her words, Aurora's main gun rotated in its housing, the massive barrel reflecting the facility's lights. It was a weapon that would have been familiar to any naval gunner from Earth's past, scaled up and modified to fire projectiles at speeds that would make those same gunners weep with joy. The Alliance thinks we're building this ship to join their fleet, Sarah observed. They don't realize we're building it to show them a better way to fight. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy, Vasquez replied. We remember what they've forgotten. Sometimes the most elegant solution is a sledgehammer, not a scalpel. As another test cycle began, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Aurora might look primitive to their alien allies, but it represented something unique. Humanity's ability to learn from the future while remembering the lessons of the past. In 2 weeks, the galaxy would learn whether that combination was enough to change the course of an interstellar war. The silent strike. Aurora emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, its massive hull dark against the starfield. On the bridge, Admiral Vasquez stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as sensor data streamed across the tactical displays. Dr. Chen sat at her station, monitoring the ship's hybrid systems as they recovered from the jump. Status report, Vasquez commanded, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. All systems nominal, Sarah responded, checking the readings. The Alliance jump drive integrated perfectly with our conventional systems. Hull integrity at 100%, weapons systems charging. They weren't supposed to be here. Aurora's first deployment had been planned as a joint exercise with Alliance forces, but 12 hours ago, they'd received a distress signal from the Proxima research station. The collective had launched a surprise attack, testing the Alliance's defenses. Multiple contacts, Lieutenant Park announced from Tactical. Reading 15 collective vessels engaged with 3 Alliance ships near the station. Alliance vessels showing heavy damage. Vasquez nodded, a predatory smile crossing her face. Perfect time for a shakedown cruise. All hands, battle stations. Throughout Aurora, crews moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike the neural-linked crews of alien vessels, every station was manned by human operators who understood both the advanced technology they were using and the mechanical backups they might need. They haven't detected us yet, Sarah reported, studying the sensor readings. The metamaterial hull is working. We're absorbing their standard detection methods. Tactical analysis, Vasquez asked. Lieutenant Park's fingers danced across his console. Collective forces are using standard swarm tactics. They're focusing fire on the Alliance vessel's shield generators. 2 minutes until shield failure at current rates. Not if we have anything to say about it, Vasquez declared. Navigation, Plot us a course through that debris field. Weapons, prepare the main gun. Let's show them why humans still believe in kinetic solutions. Aurora glided forward, its massive bulk moving with surprising grace through the scattered remains of destroyed ships. The debris provided both cover and opportunity. Each piece of wreckage was tracked and analyzed by Aurora's targeting systems. Energy spike. Sarah called out. One of the collective ships is scanning the debris field. Time to introduce ourselves, Vasquez decided. Weapons, target the lead collective vessel. Engineering, divert power to the main gun. Let's show them what happens when you combine Alliance gravitational tech with good old-fashioned physics. The massive rail gun hummed to life, its barrel charged with salvaged Alliance gravitational fields. Instead of exotic energy weapons or space-time distortions, Aurora was about to deliver a very traditional message. A solid projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. Target locked. Park confirmed. Solution computed, accounting for debris field variables. Fire. Aurora's main gun spoke. There was no beam of light, no reality warping distortion, just a solid projectile launched with enough kinetic energy to rival a small nuclear explosion. The collective vessel, its defenses tuned for energy weapons and spatial distortions, never had a chance. The round punched through its advanced shields like they weren't there and transformed the ship into an expanding cloud of debris. For a moment, all combat in the system seemed to pause. Multiple targeting locks, Park reported. They've spotted us. Collective forces are breaking off their attack on the Alliance ships. As expected, Vasquez smiled. Defensive systems active. Show them what else we've learned. The collective ships opened fire, their void-based weapons reaching out to erase sections of space and Aurora from existence. But where Alliance vessels relied on energy shields, Aurora employed its adapted collective technology differently. Microscopic points of null space bloomed around the ship, swallowing incoming fire without effort. Point defense functioning perfectly, Sarah reported, her voice tight with concentration. Their own technology, used in a way they never considered. Launch countermeasures, Vasquez ordered. Let's add some chaos to their swarm tactics. Aurora's secondary launchers fired, releasing clouds of what appeared to be simple metallic chaff. But each particle was embedded with miniaturized versions of Alliance quantum communicators. The collective's neural network, used to coordinate their swarm tactics, suddenly found itself drowning in false signals and feedback loops. Their formation is breaking down, Park announced. Ships are losing coordination. Target the next largest vessel, Vasquez commanded. Fire when ready. Again, Aurora's main gun spoke. Another collective ship disappeared, its advanced technology useless against such a primitive form of attack. The remaining collective vessels began to retreat, their swarm tactics falling apart without their network coordination. The Alliance ships, finally getting a moment to regroup, began broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Commander Zixtal of the Alliance Defense Force. A crystalline voice transmitted. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Vasquez straightened her uniform. This is Admiral Helena Vasquez of the Earth ship Aurora. We noticed you could use some help. There was a long pause before the response came. Your tactics are unorthodox, Admiral, but effective. Perhaps we have more to learn from Earth than we realized. That's why we're here, Vasquez replied, watching as the remaining collective ships flowed into hyperspace. Sometimes the best way forward is to remember what worked in the past. Sarah looked up from her station, catching the Admiral's eye. They both knew this was just the beginning. Aurora had proven its concept in battle, combining humanity's remembered lessons with stolen glimpses of the future. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in forgetting its past, but in bringing it forward into the future. Breaking point. The colony world of New Horizon filled Aurora's view screens, its azure atmosphere streaked with the burning trails of descending escape pods. 80,000 civilian colonists were attempting to evacuate as the collective fleet approached, a force 3 times larger than what they'd faced at Proxima Centauri. Status of the evacuation. Admiral Vasquez demanded, her voice hoarse after 18 hours of continuous combat operations. 60% of colonists are spaceborne, Sarah reported, dividing her attention between system diagnostics and evacuation progress. The Alliance transports need another 40 minutes to get the rest. Lieutenant Park's tactical display lit up with new contacts. Multiple collective vessels emerging from hyperspace. They're targeting the civilian ships. Vasquez studied the tactical plot, her expression grim. Aurora had already taken damage from the previous engagements. Their metamaterial hull was degrading, 2 secondary reactors were offline, and their main gun could only fire at 70% power due to heat buildup. Engineering, status of the backup systems. Vasquez called. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. Main reactor stable but stressed. We got maybe 3 more full power shots from the main gun before we risk a containment breach. Point defense is running on backups. Effective but coverage is down to 80%. Sarah's hands flew across her console as she implemented another jury-rigged solution to keep their hybrid systems functioning. The ship shuddered as a collective void beam grazed their port side. Hull breach on Deck 4, Park reported. Emergency bulkheads holding. Return fire, Vasquez ordered. Target their lead vessels. We need to buy those transports time. Aurora's main gun roared to life, its gravitational accelerators straining against their safety limits. The round struck true, obliterating a collective cruiser, but the enemy fleet barely seemed to notice the loss. New tactic, Sarah announced suddenly, her eyes wide with realization. Admiral, the collective's void beams work by creating points of null space, right? We've been using their own technology to defend against it, but what if we went offensive? Explain quickly, Doctor. We can't match their firepower, but we can use their principles against them. If we reconfigure our point defense system to project null space points inside their ships instead of around ours. Vasquez nodded sharply. Make it happen. Engineering, give her whatever she needs. As Sarah worked, the battle intensified. The civilian transports were running a gauntlet of collective fire, their Alliance escorts falling one by one as they sacrificed themselves to protect the evacuees. Aurora positioned itself between the enemy fleet and the escape route, its conventional armor ablating away under the assault. Modification ready, Sarah announced minutes later. But there's a catch. We'll have to drop our own point defense to power it. 1 hit from their void beams while we're exposed. Better than watching those civilians die, Vasquez decided. Tactical, paint me a target. Engineering, prepare for emergency power redistribution. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role in this desperate gambit. Aurora's conventional weapons continued firing, keeping the collective's attention focused on them rather than the fleeing civilians. Target locked. Park confirmed. Largest collective vessel, bearing 035. Now, Dr. Chen. Sarah initiated the modified defense system. Instead of creating a protective shell of null space around Aurora, the system projected a concentrated point directly into the heart of the target vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive collective ship simply ceased to exist as a portion of its core was erased from reality. It worked, Sarah exclaimed, but our power systems are redlining. We can maybe manage 2 more shots before. The ship lurched violently as a void beam struck their unprotected hull. Alarms screamed across every deck as systems failed and emergency protocols engaged. Direct hit. Rodriguez reported from engineering. Port reactor complex is gone. Switching to backups, but we're losing power fast. Through the chaos, Vasquez remained focused on the tactical display. The collective fleet had faltered, clearly shocked by the loss of their flagship to their own weapon principle. The civilian transports were using the distraction to make their final runs to safety. Status of the evacuation. she demanded. Last transport lifting off now. Sarah confirmed. 15 minutes until they can jump to safety. We need to give them that time, Vasquez declared. Engineering, strip power from everything except life support, and our new weapon. Tactical, find me another target. Let's show the collective why humans never put all their eggs in one basket. Aurora's lights dimmed as power was diverted. The mighty ship, its hull scared and systems failing, prepared for one final effort. The collective fleet was regrouping, but uncertainty was visible in their formation. Their usual swarm tactics had given way to a more cautious approach. Target acquired, Park announced. Fire. Another collective vessel vanished, erased by its own principles turned against it. The enemy fleet recoiled, their coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. They had never encountered an opponent who would sacrifice their own defenses for a killing stroke. Last transport away, Sarah reported triumphantly. They're spooling up their jump drives now. The bridge crew cheered, but Vasquez wasn't finished. Status of our jump drive. Online, but barely, Rodriguez reported. We've got one jump in us, maybe. Plot a course home, Vasquez ordered. Let's show the collective one last human lesson, knowing when to make a strategic withdrawal. As the civilian ships vanished into hyperspace one by one, Aurora prepared for its own escape. The collective fleet, still reeling from their losses and the unprecedented tactics they'd witnessed, held their position. They're not pursuing, Park noted with surprise. Of course not, Sarah replied, managing a tired smile. We just taught them something their advanced technology had let them forget. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. Aurora limped into hyperspace, leaving behind a legend that would spread through both Alliance and collective forces, the story of a primitive vessel that had turned the enemy's own principles against them, all to save civilian lives. It was a very human victory, bought with courage, improvisation, and the willingness to risk everything for what mattered most. Paradigm shift. The combined fleet hung in space above Earth, a gathering unprecedented in galactic history. Alliance crystalline ships formed a protective sphere around Aurora and her sister ships, humanity's small but growing space force. Even more remarkably, within visual range, a delegation of collective vessels waited, their dark hulls marked with symbols of truce. On Aurora's bridge, now repaired and upgraded after the New Horizon evacuation, Admiral Vasquez stood with Alliance Commander Zixtal and, most surprisingly, Collective Overseer Nthen. The view screens showed the latest battle data from across 3 sectors, but no weapons were firing. Your tactical analysis is disturbing, Nthen admitted, their multifaceted eyes studying the battle projections. We had become so focused on technological supremacy that we forgot the fundamental principles of warfare. And physics, Sarah added from her station, where she was coordinating with both Alliance and collective scientific teams. By relying entirely on exotic solutions, both sides had developed predictable weaknesses. The data told the story clearly. Since Aurora's dramatic defense of New Horizon, both major powers had been forced to reevaluate their military doctrine. The Alliance's crystalline ships now carried backup kinetic weapons, while collective vessels had begun incorporating redundant mechanical systems alongside their neural networks. The term you humans use is hybridization, Zixtal observed, their crystalline form refracting light as they moved. Combining advanced technology with fundamental principles, we had forgotten that complexity often breeds vulnerability. Vasquez nodded. Humanity learned that lesson through centuries of our own wars. Every advancement in technology created new weaknesses to be exploited. The solution was never to abandon the old ways entirely, but to combine them with the new. The tactical display shifted, showing a recent engagement where an Alliance vessel had successfully defended itself against a collective attack, even after losing its primary energy weapons. The backup kinetic systems, crude by their standards but devastatingly effective, had turned the tide. The collective has reviewed its strategic objectives, Enthan announced, their voice carrying harmonic undertones of formal authority. Our assumption of inevitable victory through technological superiority has been disproven. We propose a diplomatic solution. Sarah's eyes widened as she looked up from her console. This was the real reason for today's gathering. The first serious peace overture in a war that had raged for decades. Humanity's entry into the conflict had done more than introduce new tactics. It had shaken both sides out of their technological arrogance. The Alliance is prepared to negotiate, Sixtol confirmed. But we request Earth's participation as mediators. Your perspective has proven invaluable. Vasquez exchanged glances with Sarah before responding. Earth will assist, but we have conditions. The sharing of technology must go both ways, and colonization rights must be protected for all species, not just the major powers. The alien representatives shared their own look, a reminder that despite their differences, some diplomatic gestures were universal. Acceptable, Enthan stated. The collective acknowledges that isolation breeds stagnation. Your species has demonstrated that progress comes not from abandoning the past, but from building upon it. Which brings us to the other reason for this gathering, Sixtol added. The Alliance proposes the establishment of a joint military and scientific academy. All species, including humanity, would share knowledge and train together. Sarah's console pinged with an incoming data packet, preliminary plans for the academy. The proposed curriculum was fascinating, combining advanced theoretical physics with practical engineering, exotic technology with fundamental principles. The academy will be located in neutral space, Enthan continued. Both the Collective and Alliance acknowledge that we have much to learn from Earth's approach to both warfare and peace. Speaking of Earth's approach, Sarah interjected, pulling up a new simulation on the main screen. My team has been working on something that might interest both your species. We've found a way to combine Alliance crystalline technology with collective void manipulation, regulated by human-designed mechanical systems. The applications for both peaceful and defensive purposes are remarkable. The alien representatives moved closer to study the display, their body language showing clear interest despite their physiological differences. This was what humanity brought to the galaxy, not just the memory of fundamental principles, but the creativity to combine them with advanced technology in new ways. The future of our civilization will be neither purely advanced nor purely primitive, Vasquez stated, watching the simulation play out. It will be a combination of all our strengths. Earth stands ready to help forge that future. As if to emphasize her words, a new ship appeared on the tactical display. The first vessel designed and built jointly by all three civilizations. Its hull combined crystalline and void technology with human-style armor. Its weapons systems ranged from gravity drives to kinetic launchers. Most importantly, its command structure utilized both AI assistance and human intuition, neural networks, and manual controls. The galaxy is entering a new age, Sixtol observed. One where advancement does not mean abandonment of fundamental principles, and where strength comes not from technological superiority, Enthan added, but from the wisdom to know when to use which tool. Sarah smiled as she studied the data flowing across her screen. The academy proposals, the joint ship designs, the combined research projects, all of it represented something unique in the galaxy's history. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage at exactly the right moment, bringing with them the crucial reminder that progress wasn't a straight line from primitive to advanced, but a complex web of interconnected principles and technologies. We still have much to learn from each other, Vasquez concluded, looking out at the assembled fleet. But together, we'll build something greater than any of us could have achieved alone. The gathered ships hung silent in space above Earth, their very formation a testament to how much had changed. They were no longer divided into primitive and advanced, superior and inferior. They were simply different pieces of the same cosmic puzzle, each bringing their own crucial perspective to the challenges ahead. The stars watched in silence as history turned a new page, one written not in the language of war, but in the combined wisdom of 3 civilizations, learning that true advancement meant remembering where you came from even as you reached for the stars.